just made up in Joseph Smith's mind. None of this should be happening. None of it. We shouldn't be able to even propose decent tests to do on the Book of Mormon. As it is, it just keeps having more information, different thrusts and emphasis and ways of testing its claims. A new one on law and legalities by John Welch is coming out here in just a couple of weeks. I heard from Daniel C. Peterson. And it's going to be a thick 500-page book. I can't wait to get my hands on that. John Welch is phenomenal. He's very good. Read everything you can by John Welch. He's very good. He's one of those soft-spoken scholars that carries a big stick. I love his materials. Very careful, very meticulous. So, anyway, that's just one idea on the Book of Mormon. Those who say that the Book of Mormon has nothing in its favor, that science, that modern science has now refuted the Book of Mormon. Well, what did they say about the Bering Strait theory? When I was growing up, the Bering Strait theory was the final nail in the coffin against the Book of Mormon coming across the ocean on ships. It was over. Book of Mormon is dead in the water, no pun intended. There's no hope. You people who believe the Book of Mormon, they came through the Siberian land bridge, you have no hope. You're done. Throw the book away. It's obviously false. And I just shared a video with you showing that Michael Coe says, nope, the Bering Strait theory is completely irrelevant. Holy Toledo, what an about-face. Now, what happens to all those Mormons who lost faith in the Book of Mormon because of that Bering Land Strait theory, that science that destroyed the Book of Mormon, and now, through more analysis over the course of the last 30 years, the Mesoamerican scholars and scientists are now saying, well, the Siberian land bridge is completely irrelevant because it's obvious that they came over by boat. Now, what are you going to do with that science, you see? That's the problem. So, those who say the Book of Mormon has nothing in its favor, that's simply a false argument. Now, again, on this subject of oceanic crossings, of maritime expeditions, and ancients building boats, a new updated approach to this has just occurred on the scene. And he talks about it in the Journal of Book of Mormon Studies, Volume 14, Number 1, 2005, by John L. Sorensen. Now, if you want solid research, I can hardly recommend anyone better than John L. Sorensen. The man has been at it for 60 years. He is just superb. And in his article, Ancient Voyages Across the Ocean to America, From Impossible to Certain, he describes his newest studies with other linguists and botanists and Mesoamerican scholars. Over the last 4 years, so this is just brand new, since 2002 up to 2005 and 6, in the new millennium, like I say, we're in the new millennium, folks. The Book of Mormon has taken a corner, and it is stronger. The theme, the plausibility, is no longer ridiculous. The plausibility is very solid. That is an advancement. Now we can begin to go back and reread all the old stuff again and see what we've been ignoring and see what science has poo-pooed as being illogical, irrational, and so on and so forth. Oh no, it's not. But the newer studies are also exquisitely interesting. You want to see extensive evidence of cultural contacts and botanical contacts between the worlds via the oceans? Sorensen has just assembled it. It'll be in published print. Now, I'm speculating within the next couple of years, I hope. He says over the last 4 years, 98 species of plants have been identified that originated in either the old world or the new, yet were also grown in pre-Columbian times in the opposite hemisphere. This isn't just 1 or 2. This is 98 new species. That is an enormously high number to find. We have an established pattern here, in other words. That's what Sorensen shows. A plant is an objective fact. This is on page 7, by the way, of the journal. Always want to keep precise on my information where I come from. A plant is an objective fact that demands a physical explanation for the presence of the same species on two sides of an ocean. Yet all purely naturalistic theories fail to account for plants thousands of miles from their natural home. For example, some have supposed that the seeds were carried thousands of miles by birds, or evolutionary processes have been claimed as yielding identical species in multiple locations. But these notions are never more than non-empirical speculation. The only rational explanation, and this is what I love about the LDS scholarship. You know, we're told we live in a fantasy world, that we believe tissues of absurdities for doctrines and beliefs in the Book of Mormon and so on and so forth. Archaeologically discovered plants on both sides of the oceans. We want to explain that rationally. What's the only rational explanation? Oceanic crossings by man. Before Columbus, interestingly enough. Now, Victor H. Mayer, this is interesting because Sorensen started gathering all this material, see? Here he is, an LDS Mormon, a biased, closed-minded, brainwashed, brain-dead Mormon scholar, if we would believe our critics. And none other than Victor H. Mayer, who is a specialist in Chinese literature and language at the University of Pennsylvania, took an interest in Sorensen's project and invited me to prepare a paper for a conference he was organizing on contacts and exchange in the ancient world. I invited my friend and colleague Carl L. Johansson, Emeritus Professor of Geography at the University of Oregon, who had long worked on the topic, to collaborate with me. By the time of the conference in May 2001, we had identified over 35 plant species for which there was what we considered conclusive proof that species had been transported between the hemispheres. By 2003, just 2 years, when we submitted our paper to Mayer for publication, in the report of the conference, the number of plant species on our conclusive list had grown to 85. Since then, we have still found more. Today, the total is 98 species. Here, a non-Mormon archaeologist and scholar invites John Sorensen to discuss this theme of transoceanic contact cultural parallels. It is obviously being peer-reviewed, and they started out with 35 species, and through continuous research, they've come to 98 species, and they are nowhere near done yet. It's like the Hebrew linguistic parallels. They have found thousands now. What are the chances? This gets very stunning. On page 8, he says, in 1966-67, Australian archaeologist Ian Glover excavated in caves on the island of Timor in Indonesia, where he discovered plant remains that included 3 crops of American origin. In Indonesia, the annona, the custard apple, zea, which is maize, and arakis, which is the peanut. These dated to the latest, to AD 1000, and probably well before. The peanuts were duplicated at 2 sites on the Chinese mainland that date by radiocarbon to as early as 2800 BC. Way back. In northern India, archaeologists have recently found seeds of Phaseolus vulgaris, the kidney bean, Phaseolus lunatus, the lima bean, and Macroptylium lothroides, the phazy bean, which is a cousin of kidney and lima beans, in addition to Argemon mexicana, that is the Mexican prickle poppy, all natives of America,